There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all well. I'm just going to start off by doing my usual sound check. So if you can hear me, please use the chat box on the right-hand side. Just type yes into that chat box and I'll know you can hear us loud and clear. Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely weather today down in sunny Hampshire, so I hope you're all doing well. Makes me smile when the sun's out. Can our audience hear us? Perfect. Can we hear? There we go. Everybody's replying. Fantastic. Perfect, perfect, perfect. There we go. So yes, it looks like everybody can hear me, so let's get going. So just to introduce myself, my name is Chantal Newton and I'm the Marketing Manager at the UK Contact Centre Forum. Thank you for taking the time to join our webinar today. It's the first in our new series looking at outsourcing. Today, this session will be a discussion panel giving you an introduction into outsourcing. I have a few housekeeping points to go through before we begin. We have some polls for you to participate in today. When prompted, the poll should appear automatically in the side panel on your right. If the poll does not automatically appear, please select the polls tab to participate. After the presentation today, we'll be holding a full Q&A session, so please post any questions that you may have for our panel in the chat box provided. This webinar session is expected to last 45 minutes. If you're unable to stay for that the whole time, the session is being recorded and the link will be emailed to all participants within 24 hours of the session ending. The presentation slides from today's session will be available to you to download from the Files tab during the presentation. So I'm joined today by a panel of experts from across our industry, and I'm just going to invite them to introduce themselves to you. So first we have Lynda Campbell. Thank you, Lynda.
Thank you. I'm Lynda Campbell. My previous work with outsourcers would have been when I was Director of British Gas in Wales, and we had many outsourced partners. And then more recently, when I was Head of Transformation for Global Contact Centres for BA. Lots of experience using outsourced partners.
Thank you, Lynda. Next on to Phil Kitchen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon from sunny Sheffield. So my background's similar, I guess, to everybody that's on the panel. 30 years within the world of outsourcing, sold a business to Capita in 2015 and set this business up called CCP, which fundamentally helps clients find the right outsourcing partner, and delighted to be talking to you today.
That's great. Thanks, Phil. Next, we're on to Dave Cleaver. Thank you, Dave.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Dave Cleaver, and I'm also ex-British Gas Centrica. I guess in relation to the topic today, I performed the role of Head of Partnerships, and at peak was looking after 6 different outsourced partners, delivering around 30 different services and managing around 500 people. So yeah, I had my hands full at different times during Centrica.
Thanks, Dave. Next, we're on to Neville. Thank you, Neville.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Neville Doughty, about 23 years in the outsourcing industry. Started out as an agent, worked my way through operations roles into project management, and then most recently about 15 years in client services roles, so managing the client relationships on behalf of outsourcers. So good to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Neville. And finally, we have Jonathan Billing from Contact Centre Panel, who's our chair for today's session. So I'm going to pass you over to Jonathan to introduce himself and to get things started. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chantal. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. Thanks for joining our webinar today. I'm going to be, as Chantal said, chairing today's discussion. I've got a number of questions I'm going to throw out to the panelists for their thoughts. As Chantal mentioned before, if you've got any questions, please ask as we go through the webinar, and we'll try and answer as best we can. So I'm going to start off with the first question, which is around when and when not to outsource. I'm going to throw it over to you, Dave, just to kick things off, to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, first of all,
I think we've got a slight problem with his signal there. Should we move on to you, Phil, and wait till Dave comes back?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, JB. So I guess one observation. Are you back? Are you back, Dave? I'll continue and I'll allow Dave to just come in when his bandwidth is sorted out. I'm trusting everybody can hear me okay. So I guess in terms of when and when not to outsource, one of the points I'd like to make is I think it's vitally important that you align outsourcing to your business strategy, your strategic approach, involving all stakeholders in the business. So I think that's one particular observation I'd like to make. And I guess from our perspective, we see a lot of clients, a lot of outsourced partners, and I think it's sometimes a little bit concerning that I guess their outsourced strategy is not aligned to their business strategy, and on the back of that, mistakes are made. I guess there are some obvious points to make in terms of when to outsource and when not to outsource, and I think we've seen over the last 12 months, some fantastic best practice in terms of the ability to deliver big headcount numbers over a relatively short period of time. So that's sort of, call it a knee-jerk reaction to outsourcing. But I think COVID, and Chantal and I were just talking before this call, but I think COVID, I mean, the outsource industry or the contact center industry is sometimes much maligned. But I think this last 12 months, I think the industry has dramatically stepped up to the mark. So I think definitely that rapid reaction, that ability to move really quickly, I think outsourcers can definitely deliver that. And I think, it'll be an interesting discussion, I know, around home working, but home working has given us the ability to do that at scale. We talk to some outsourcers that have gone from 300 or 400 heads to 1,400 heads. And some of them far greater than that. I guess the only other points to make, and I'll pass back to Dave, but and I'm sure you've experienced this, Dave, within the world of Centrica, is the sort of removal of headcount from the business. I guess we're finding that some clients are particularly challenged on that, and then it's not about budget; it's more about removing headcount. So there's lots more I could say on that, but I think if I could pass back to,
I think Dave's having a few issues.
Maybe
it's good to pass on to Lynda if she Lynda.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So the two answers I would have given following that question were very similar, which is outsource when it's right for your strategy. Don't outsource when it's a knee-jerk reaction, because I've actually seen both. And not really great successful outcomes. So if your strategy is to downsize on headcount, for instance, or it's because you want to build more flexibility, or you want to build a champion challenger in terms of the role, or you want to free up some office space, whatever those things are, they're the right times to outsource. Where I see it not working very well is when the world goes mad, we suddenly think, oh my God, we need an extra 100 heads. Let's just find someone and be able to take those calls. And that's where I don't think it kind of ends up in a really good place. So always align to the strategy, whatever that strategy is.
JB, it's Dave Cleaver.
Hi, Dave. Good to hear you.
I managed to get a connection. I'm not sure what happened then. And so I probably missed about sort of a good 5 minutes of great discussion there. But if I could just kind of add my 2 pennies worth.
Yes, please do.
If it's all right. I'm not sure if so in terms of outsourcing, I think the key thing in terms of when it's right is finding the right partner. And what I mean by that is the culture, the values, and trying to find synergies with that partnership that you're trying to develop. And it's almost kind of looking beyond the desktop exercise and the contractual framework to take place around the negotiation table. And I just think that if you can find a partner in an outsourcer that has similar, they won't have exact culture and values alignment, but it's similar. That won't half help when things when you go through those sticky periods in the relationship. And then conversely to that, then in terms of from a partnership perspective, it's much more than a service these days, particularly if you're thinking strategically, you're looking for things like insight, technology, and innovation, things that perhaps you don't have in-house, and the things that maybe people can deliver to help improve the landscape. And then when not to outsource, I guess the key thing for me, this is probably a watch out for outsourcers really, rather than clients. But if you're in negotiation with a client and you see, I don't know, a senior leadership team sort of, literally spinning plates, they're firefighting. And I think this links back to what Lynda was saying. And you find the conversation to being led by finance and procurement. Stay clear. Don't go anywhere near it if you can help it. Do you know what I mean? They're just a thing that would be the key red flag for me that would kind of make me very uncomfortable with kind of any sort of relationship with on a client supplier relationship.
So Neb, do you want to add to this?
It was something that Lynda was saying that really resonated with me as well. And what you should be outsourcing and what you shouldn't. I think it's always worth remembering that you're outsourcing the service, if you like, and you might, you're outsourcing the care of probably your most precious thing, your brand. But remember, you're not outsourcing the risk, so it's not a case of, I'll push it to an outsourcer and wipe my hands of it. You need to make sure that you're engaging and having the right conversations so that everybody's joined up and aligned on exactly what you're going to deliver. It doesn't just make things disappear. There's still some hard work that needs to go into to make it a success.
Okay, great. So Phil, what would you see as the sort of key benefits of outsourcing? Maybe touch a few.
Yeah, well, I've probably got a list as long as your arm is the truth, but I think, and Nev's very aware of this because we work really closely, and we've seen some fantastic presentations from outsourcers that have revolved around technology. So, technology is moving at such a pace, and I think the outsourcing environments are on top of that technology. So I think technology is one of the key benefits, that can add considerable value. And Dave's mentioned things like insight. The outsourcer to a degree are driven by their clients, but hopefully they're also on the front foot. But I think technology, absolutely. There are other clear benefits, short-term resource, I'm sure the audience are very aware of the fact that, outsourcers can, do rapid deployment around that sort of Christmas period, or, we've got clients that clearly deploy large numbers rapidly via outsourcing when it comes to Mother's Day or Valentine's Day. There are other key customer service benefits. It's given you the ability by different types of outsourcer to extend your hours, whether you want to go 24/7, whether you want to just extend to the evening and you've got that internal resource that's picking up daytime calls, and there's a demand from your customers to extend. There's the obvious one, which is cost reduction. And I mean, that in terms of the ability to deliver that within the UK, but, we're seeing some, phenomenal cost reduction by outsourcing near and offshore, where prices are considerably less than, your ability or you need to deliver that in the UK. And I'd sort of caveat that by saying that the quality of service that we're seeing is again phenomenal. So I think, I'll open it up to everybody else's points, but, I could go on for ages, JB, about this.
Yeah, Lynda, what do you think? What's your thoughts?
Apart from those which I kind of agree with, there were a couple of others as well. I think business continuity is one where it's a real benefit. I think opening up this champion challenger type of relationship where you've got to be careful with champion challenger. It's not overly competitive, but at the same time, I think if it's a type of relationship where you can learn from each other, then I think that is a real benefit. And then the other one for me, apart from things like 24/7 extended opening hours, is just a bit more flexibility, depending on the way that you build a contract. So they would be the things I would just add to what's already been said.
Just on the Champion Challenger, I'm sure most of the audience understand what it is, but do you want to just explain a bit more detail about how that works, how that model works?
Yeah, I mean, my experience of it was probably in British Gas, where we had outsourcers supporting us, taking the same type of calls that our internal teams would take in. So I don't know, it could have been a couple of hundred people in an outsourcer taking a number of similar calls to the rest of the organisation, and then we would contrast and compare their performance. Because if you're doing a like for like, surely there should be some level of consistency in performance, and we saw different things across the different sites. So not only in our internal sites, but then with our outsourced partners. So we then go and visit the partners, listen in, try and understand why maybe they were faster in terms of servicing the customer, or whether they were better than the internal guys on customer service and NPS performance. So it just opens up that champion challenger type of relationship. The watch out for me is it can also go too far. It can become too competitive, and therefore the sharing doesn't happen, and that's not a good thing for me. So if you can learn from each other and keep improving, either the outsourcer or the internal can keep improving by looking at what the other guys are doing, learning from some new innovation they may have, or some new ways of handling the call, or some training they're doing in terms of customer experience. If you can keep learning, champion challenger works. If it becomes too competitive, it doesn't work. So it's just a watch out.
Right.
And I've probably seen the sharpest end of that champion challenger was actually then driving how many seats were allocated to each provider 2 quarters down the line. So your results now were driving that change in headcount at a later date. And for an outsourcer, that can be really difficult to manage, because you're constantly having to move your staffing up and down. Great on one hand that you're driving optimum performance, but sometimes you have to think what's the reality of the commercial framework that you sit behind it.
Yeah.
So Dave, do you have any, as far as the key benefits are concerned, you've got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I always kind of look at things probably more on a strategic level, and I think about, and I go back to the point about insight and technology. When I first started sort of operating and working with outsourced partners, we led them from an in-house perspective, but latterly, do you know what I mean, the conversations were far more often led by the outsourcer, and that was driven by the innovation and technology and the tools that they could offer to help deliver step changes in performance. So it went beyond the service in my mind. It was, and dare I say it, the conversations became better because of that.
Yeah. Oh, I think we've lost Dave.
No, I'm still here, JB. Can you hear me?
Sorry, you can hear you now. Yep, that's right.
Oh, sorry. Did you miss that last? But I was just saying the importance in and around the insight and technology, and how that can deliver a step change in the relationship between the partner, between the client and the supplier. So it is for me strategically the insight and technology.
Great, that's good. Thank you, Dave. I think it's probably a good time to go to do our first poll, actually. So Chantal, do you want to just run the first poll?
Absolutely. So I'm just launching the first poll for you now. Again, it should appear automatically. If not, if you could navigate to your polls tab. And the first question we're asking you is, do you currently use an outsourced contact center partner? If I can put my teeth in, that'd be great. Simple answers, yes or no. Just give a couple of minutes for all our audience to participate in that one.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question then. So next one is around cultural management. I think this is be great to hear from you, Lynda, on this. Really around the importance of it. obviously with your background, you've got a lot of sort of experience around that.
Yeah. Okay. So probably the most important thing to me. So I think when you work in different organisations, we all may be looking for something different. What was important to me, both when I was in BA and in British Gas, was the cultural fit. And it's just because I'm a big believer in organisational culture, the way we lead our people, and the way that we look after our customers. So kind of what's at your heart of your organisation. And this is what I was saying earlier around when an outsourcer is bidding for a contract, and when an in-source organisation is looking for an outsourcer, for me, the cultural alignment is the key to longevity in the partnership. So if it's something you're just looking for a really quick fix for a year for 100 people, completely different. If you're looking for a long-term partner, the cultural fit is crucial for me. And the values of the organisation in terms of the way they treat customers and like I said, the way they look after their people, because only then will you start to see this, for me, real partnership starting to build. And the other thing is that, again, not just culturally, but strategic fit. So if we make a decision as an organisation that we want to outsource 20% of our work, and that's that's kind of a long-term proposal for us, then getting the right cultural partner in will be key. Because if you think about it, from working within an organisation and outsourcing, you do lose an element of control. And so you need to be able to give that control away, and you need to work with a trusted partner that will treat people and customers in the way that your brand and your organisation wants to treat people and customers. So the reason it's what I look for when I'm working in this space is because I believe it's the answer to a long-term relationship.
Right. Thank you, Lynda. So Nev, have you got any thoughts on?
Yeah, it's funny because I was just thinking, and when do you know that you've achieved that cultural alignment? And with the agent population, it's at that moment where when you're speaking to them, they don't say that they work for the outsourcer's brand. They say that they work for the client. So you see them around the building, or you hear them talking to each other in the pub, and it's "I work for," and it's the brand of the client. I think you've got to make sure that both as a client and as an outsourcer, you're actually invested in making that happen. So those agents on the front line don't feel that they're treated as second class because they're working for the outsourcer, not the client. So I think there's that piece there. But it is then, that piece of, having good governance around it. And almost, I've had the chairman of an organisation in one of my annual reviews, and I've given him a flip chart and a pen. And I've had some of his direct reports look at me as if to say, where's this going? And he had the afternoon of his life. He got back to what it was about and what did we get out of that as a result of, as the outsourcer. We got the inside track on what his strategy was for the next 3 years with his team in the room. And then we were able to say, right, okay, let's make that happen for you then. Let's take that forward. So the senior team was all bought into the culture as well within the outsourcer. So, I think for me, it is that you've got to get the alignment there, top to bottom, what you're setting out to achieve.
Excellent. Okay, so Dave, do you want to?
I just echo what Lynda was saying, really, and some of the practicalities of that. One of the things, and Neville know this, is one of the things that we attempted to do, and Nev is right about. So the branding, how people feel about the partner that they're working with. But one of the things that we did when we had sort of 5 different outsourced partners all working on similar services, we created an operational excellence framework, and that sort of helped sort of build a set of values and a belief system in terms of what we were trying to achieve. And it really sets some high standards that everyone could aspire to deliver, and not one partner would, I mean, kind of renege on the idea of that. And it kind of plays to what Lynda was saying in terms of what you want to get out of that relationship in the long term.
Yeah. I guess the question also goes back to the outsourcer in that if you don't think that your organisation is aligned to maybe the values or the culture of a particular organisation that are outsourcing, I wouldn't be going for the contract, because it can be equally as damaging, but both ways around.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, Lynda. I think you know, and double back on Dave's point right at the start of this discussion, which was all about procurement. And I think that there lies one of the challenges, because procurement tend to, and again, value Lynda and Dave's experience on this, but procurement tend to apply a very hands-off process to selection, you know, as well as it being to a degree cost-driven. And we all know costs are a very important part of any outsourcing exercise. But procurement tend to be very hands-off. Yeah. I think that there lies the challenge. You know, we adopt a process which is very hands-on. You know, we try and I know, JB, you've got a question about procurement, and I can probably sort of dovetail into it now. But that's sort of the process of taking procurement on the journey, I think, is really, really important. You can't alienate them, but you've got to take them on this journey with you. You know, but you've got to take up a process which is all about engaging with the outsourcer from the very start. You know, it's a process that isn't smoke and mirrors. You know, it's a very interactive process. And I think for me, that's where you end up with the best result, because you end up with that cultural fit, that cultural alignment, you know, and therefore, to take Lynda's point on board, you know, you end up with longevity. It's as simple and as straightforward as that.
I think that's why you hit it on the head when you said that you need to take procurement on a journey. I haven't had the best experiences with procurement in this space, purely because both procurement and finance will try and, you know, it's kind of the nature of the beast, really. Will try and, you know, get the best possible price, and it's all about the money, it's all about the cost. And for me, in terms of heading up the service experience, cost plays a huge part in it, but the service experience does either equally or higher. And so I think you're dead right on, let procurement be part of the journey, but let them be part of the strategy, you know, and really understand the strategy of why you're outsourcing, so that it isn't just about screwing on price. It's about the right partner for the longevity and, you know, relationships.
And that does lead on to a question, actually, I was going to be asking around the challenges of direct procurement. And yeah, so it'd be good to get your thoughts on that. So
shall I kick off then, JB, on that? Yeah, I was going to say, I think we've probably covered quite a few of the points, but you know, I think you know, procurement have got to be, as Lynda rightly says, they've got to be part of this process. You know, you have to take them on that journey. That's really, really important. I think some of the challenges that we've got within the industry, you know, I joined this industry 30 years ago, and I remember, you know, and Dave and Lynda are testament to the fact that probably within Centrica's procurement department, there were experts when it came to, you know, outsourcing. You know, unfortunately, because of job cuts and cuts generally, there isn't that sort of expertise, you know, and there lies a specific challenge. You know, you've got, and therefore, you know, they haven't got the experience to be able to deliver the right sort of result. And, you know, I guess you've got two types of procurement department. There's a procurement department that understands that and therefore is willing to accept it. And there's a procurement department that is a little bit more dictatorial in terms of the approach. And we come across both. You know, we come across both, but back to the point, the original point, it is about taking them on that journey. You know, it's about delivering that understanding, and it's about aligning strategically to the goals of the business. You know, so they would be my points on that.
Just to build on that as well, Phil. I look at procurement and a little bit like all of us. We've had mixed experiences. I suppose, but for me, if I'm an outsourcer, sort of interacting and negotiating with the client, and I'm in the room, I'm looking at the roles and responsibilities from a client perspective, and just trying to understand, who is the decision maker? Because it gets very blurred at times, if it can get very confusing. And I just think sometimes, we kind of, if it is being led by finance, if the conversations are being led by procurement, as I said earlier, that to me is a clear red flag. But it's not to say that you can't work with these people and you can't educate, you can't, build relationships in and around them. But I guess the worry with procurement is that if they think it's a desktop exercise, if they think they can manage a relationship through a scorecard, when we talk about some of the other conversations about how do we manage business goals and such alike, again, that they're warning signs to me.
It's quite a good little caveat into the next question, actually, which is around gaining alignment with existing business goals. So how do you gain alignment with existing business goals, such as cost reduction, risk reduction, strategic alignment, and digital transformation? It'd be good to get your views on that, Nev.
Yeah, so I think for me it is all about making sure you've got the right communication. But you're clear, really clear before you set out, and you've got a really well written brief, if you like, or the RFP. You've got that set out right from the start, and if you can get that clarity, and that you're having those right conversations from the very outset, then I think you've got the best possible way of doing that. Once you're into a relationship, is the contract, what you don't want is a contract that's too restrictive on either party, that prevents that creativity or becomes too own. Because if the commercials aren't working, then bad decisions start being made. Yeah. So, you've got to make sure that there's that. What's the word? You've got to make sure that there's that continuity there and that there's that flexibility, because otherwise what you're going to end up with is, it's not sustainable. The word sustainability is got to be there. Otherwise, if you've got an outsourcer that's going, this is hurting me. And Dave and I have had these conversations across the table from each other. This bit's not quite working for me. Right, okay. What we're going to do about it then? How can we make it better? Yeah. So I think making sure everybody's clear on what you're trying to achieve, and then that it's not a case of, well, I've outsourced it to you. That's your problem. Nobody's going to win on that one.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Nev, and you kind of bring you back memories. But big business goals do change, don't they? And they will change during the life cycle of the partnership. So, and you touched on it perfectly, is that if you put the goals to one side, you can deliver anything in a partnership, but you need to get the communication right. Do you know what I mean? It's not a parent and child relationship these days. Do you know what I mean? It's much more collaborative and joined up in what you want to achieve. And with that then comes the trust. So you can have those conversations across the table, and you can say, listen, I need some help, or you need some help. And you're not just doing that on a one-to-one basis. You're doing that on a one-to-many basis, because you've got all your outsourced partners kind of all operating in the same way. And you can do some incredible things then. Do you know what I mean? The goal is the goal. You can deliver that. But it's all the kind of the more basic level stuff that needs to be in place, starting with engagement and communication.
Yeah. And it's being able to have those open and direct conversations, which might sometimes be a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah. I remember when I first started out in that account director role, going, I need to go and talk to them about what? But a difficult conversation never gets any easier by letting it fester. So I actually went, right, okay, I don't like how that went last week, or how that was delivered, or you didn't give us enough notice to implement that, so we've done a bad job of it. So I think having that honesty and that challenge almost in the right spirit working together. I think that's what gets you the best outcomes.
Yeah, and I think in our conversations we've always seeked out win-win scenarios.
Yeah.
So that you could go back to your procurement team, we could go back to our procurement team and say, hey, we've sorted this, and here's the solution.
Absolutely.
I've got a question from William Carson around this actually procurement process. He says, are existing models of procurement fit for the 21st century customer management outsourcing? I suppose we have been touching on this previously actually, but does anyone want to add to that?
Not in my experience. I think William's right. I think that put it this way, some of the large corporates seriously need to think about their procurement process in this area, because we're trying to build these partnerships. Like I said, and not screw people down for a cost model that is inflexible in the end. So I would actually say no. And which I guess the answer then, which we said earlier, is we take them on the journey with us about what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also got a question from Mark Rice, which is who should be responsible for measuring customer experience, us or the contact centre provider?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. It should be, again, if we keep going back to it's a partnership and we have a customer experience measure for all our customers, then the same measure should go across the partnership. With this trust piece, across the two. So I think it's both, and I think it's one customer experience measure or set of measures that is across all the customers that the two organisations look after.
Absolutely, because the other thing that you really can't afford to have is that you get a difference in customer experience based on which way that call or transaction routed on a given day. So you don't want it one day going to the outsourcer and they've not got the same systems access, so they can only do half of the job. When the month before someone rang in, spoke to someone who was in-house who had more of the tools, so could complete the task. So I think customer experience has got to be a thread that runs through everything and that everybody's responsible for.
Great. So Chantal, just to, I thought we could run another poll actually now. Second
Absolutely.
poll.
Yeah, that should be live on your screens now. So the second poll, we're asking, in order of importance, which of the following is currently most important to your business? So you've got options. So we've got cost reduction, cultural alignment, stroke management, digital transformation, risk reduction, strategic alignment. So if it hasn't automatically appeared, if you just navigate to your polls tab and choose vote on which one applies to you.
Okay.
Just letting people vote. Still bobbing up and down.
It's interesting. So we're seeing, is it digital transformation or cultural alignment? Very similar.
How interesting how that's changed over the, if you probably looked at that a couple of years ago, it would probably be cost reduction.
Yeah.
Just shows the importance we now need to place and why procurement, maybe need to change, procurement processes need to change, because if the important things for an organisation is cultural alignment and the way that the partnership is, and using the outsourcers' expertise on digital transformation, then that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, absolutely. It has also highlights the digital transformation piece, which actually leads me on to another question actually I've got, which is the role of technology, blended services, stroke parts outsource options. So I guess I'll throw it to you, Nev, actually, just around that how that works and your thoughts.
I think the part of this as well is looking at how things have evolved over time. So at one point it was let's outsource this simple volume activity, let's potentially outsource some of it to India, and with the advent of automation and self-service, that's obviously changing that landscape. So when we're looking at that, we're sort of going, right, actually, if technology can do that bit, what's then left? Well, what that means is you're getting into sort of more complex items or more emotional items. So, you know, ensuring that you've got people who've got the right skills, both technical and softer skills, to deal with customers who might be, you know, in a more emotional state because they've not been able to fix this themselves online, or they've not been able to get the resolution that they wanted. So I think, you know, technology's doing a great job at taking some of the volume out, at making transactions easier. I think I can remember a time when if you wanted to have speech analytics in your contact center, that was probably, you know, it was a 6-figure entry price to get that technology into your building. You know, we've moved away from that now, which means, you know, there's more access to insight, which again can drive the customer experience. So I think, you know, it is just changing so fast. That technology has enabled the delivery of home working. So, you know, given where we've been with COVID, and I know this doesn't just apply to outsourcers, but the scale of it, to move what people have been trying to do for maybe 7 years in some cases to get people working from home happened in 7 days. And, you know, the technology made that possible.
Yeah, absolutely. What? Sorry, Phil.
Sorry, JB. I was just going to make one more point there, actually, because I think there's a hope as well, isn't there, that, you know, technology is going to, you know, reduce the cost of interaction, and we hope that, you know, it delivers more budget to pay for people, you know, and upscale those people. And I don't know what Lynda's thoughts are on this, but, you know, we're definitely seeing that. We're seeing that shift to, you know, that sort of the importance of the agent and upskilling the agent and all those sorts of things. You know,
it's interesting because about 2 years ago I did a report for the Welsh Government on the future of contact centres. This was on behalf of the Welsh Contact Centre Forum, and a couple of the contact centres had closed in Wales, and quite a big number of people were made redundant. And we did a 20 years out piece in terms of globally what's going on with contact centres. And obviously, and we're all touching on this, the big, you know, the big thing that's happening, but it wasn't immediate. It wasn't in the next, this is 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years, but it was in the next 10 years. This whole shift to automation, digitalization, you know, the whole piece around data science and what the data scientists can do with data and customers and everything else. And what the kind of output of this, which is when I was working at BA, we were starting to look at this, is the centres will turn into smaller hubs of expert people handling the complexity. So when you talk about upskilling, and you know, when you look at some company strategies about where they need to be, personally, I would be looking for outsourcers now that can help with the data science, with the, you know, the automation and the technology and the digitalization piece, and even the culture move to that world, because lots of companies don't know how to do this. And then what the companies can focus on is upskilling their people to become more complex handlers of issues. So it's almost like the future of the industry is more to do with better paid, higher skilled roles, but less of them. And then, you know, this big move over the next 5 to 10 years into, you know, data science and what we can do with the data and the automation and the digitalization. So it's just an interesting one, because I think there's actually, it's not just about taking 200 people's worth of calls anymore and having 200 people doing it, or maybe, you know, save 10%. This is far more, I think, or I think the market out there is around what's the expertise those guys can bring to the table. And then what the companies can focus on is building these smaller expert hubs, better paid type roles.
Just to build on that as well, Lynda, I think we've talked an awful lot about technology, but there's much more of a focus on the customer
Yeah.
And I think with systems thinking and lean, and the need to eradicate waste, that is really taking center stage now. Do you know what I mean? So what you're left with in terms of call handling is the more technical stuff that, guess what, the computer says no. So you're right, but it's all around the customer. It's not about the outsourced partner. It's not about the client. It's what do we do to deliver the best customer outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. I had a question from David Morton. He was asking about when do you think that gig CX will become a reality in our market? He put Everest believe 20% of agents will be from the gig economy within 12 months. Who wants to answer that first? Nev, do you want to go?
Yeah, I'm going to say, do you want me to have that one? So, I think it is a really interesting one, especially as people are getting used to, working from home, the flexibility that comes with that. I think the pace of adoption into that gig space, for me, is going to depend on how quickly people want their staff back into the office. And I think, there's a number of staff who might prefer to be in the office and not be working from home. But for others, the idea of being at home and doing that gig working could be really appealing. I guess looking at some of the other sectors where there's gig workers, have they felt more, have they been more exposed as a result of, the economic realities? So, have they not been able to earn the same? Have they not had that holiday and sick pay that they might have had and things like that? So I think with the right model, it's certainly a growth area, but I think there's a few things moving around it in terms of, how quickly people are being brought back into the office and whether that's what they actually want and how confident people feel in the economy. But realistically, if you see some of these reports about the roaring 20s that we've got coming ahead, is, gig CX in a few years' time, is that going to be where a lot of people want to be so that they can be working from anywhere in the world? Traveling, log on for a few hours with the right security.
Just to add to that, I think, because I do a lot of consultancy over the last few years, and I think what this has taught us is the flexibility that home working can bring. So it's not, if I talk to people, and I've done quite a bit of leadership work with the teams that are working remotely, and the thing that everybody is saying, including some of the companies, is they probably want to work towards a more smart working model. So if you think about sometimes traditionally contact centres and the hours we work and the late shifts and that, we struggle to get people working up until 8 or 10 because they've got to get home. There is definitely something to say for the home working model, cutting out some of these poor shifts and travel. But also what the people often say is, but we need some people around us occasionally. And so what companies are telling me they're looking at the moment is this much smarter way of working where it may be a day or two in an office, which means that you can actually downsize on your office sizes because teams will be in on different days, and a home working model to complement the flexibility both for the customer and for the people. So I think on home working in particular, there is definitely a move towards a more flexible, smart working type of philosophy.
That hybrid approach, which, I can remember one of the clients that I've worked with, I would have, to have had people who could log on from home for 2 hours mid-morning would have made a massive difference, because every week we went around the same loop of, why have I got all this overstaffing in these intervals? And it was because you're insisting that I hit that interval there.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, I'm just interjecting. We're a little bit tight on time. Get my T's out. So Chantal, do you want to just run the final poll, and I'll ask the next question, which is around so how do you develop a sustained outsource relationship? So Dave, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, when I seen this question yesterday, and I was reflecting on it. For me, there is no silver bullets. As a head of partnership, back in the day, time into the relationship, and it's hard work. Do you know what I mean? You have the contracts in place, you have the client vendor relationship, you have the structure in and around the MBRs and the performance reviews. But it goes much deeper than that if you want to build a sustainable relationship. And my experience of that is that as a head of partnerships, when I went to visit any of my outsourced partners, and Neville testified to this, I was in Glasgow one day a week religiously. You put yourself in the heart of the call centre. So I would sit in the middle of the call centre, and guess what? Within a few months, every single agent in that operation knew my name. I knew their name. And this goes back to the engagement, the communication. They got a sense of trust, belief in what we're doing. And secondly, do you know what I mean? We would hold MBRs in the middle of the call center, just for people to see the types of conversations and hear snippets of the discussions. And I'm not sure about you, Nev, but when you want to develop a sustained outsource relationship, it's those small measures that make a huge amount of difference.
It's about communicate. It's about transparency, and those little bits that make that huge difference. And it's having then really that buy-in that you get from the team means that actually within that outsourced provider, you've got a volume of people who are like your voice, who's calling out, right, this is the right thing to do for our customers, for our client, and that's how you get those sustainable relationships.
Definitely.
Right. Lynda, what are your thoughts?
Get it set up right from the beginning. So cultural alignment, and make sure it's a win-win for both of you, and then you kind of build the trust at that level right from the start. And then when problems come up, because I've seen so many times when problems come up, this blame game going on either side, and then going back to the contract and seeing who's responsible and who's accountable. And that's just never the way to progress. But that all went back when I've seen those things happen. That's all gone back to the fact that things haven't been set up in the right way in the first place from both sides. So cultural alignment and a win-win on the contract right from the beginning, and then you get the trust.
Actually, you partly answered, I think, the next question, the final question, which is around the do's and don'ts. I don't know if you want to expand on that, and then I'll pass it over to Phil, because I haven't heard from you, Phil, obviously yet. So,
do is only go for bids when you think you're aligned with the partner and what they're trying to achieve. I just think it doesn't work when it's the other way around, and on even on the client side, if you like, make sure that when you set up the contract, it's a win-win, so that you both are going to get something out of this partnership. It's not a one-way ship.
Right. Okay, Phil.
Yeah, no, well, I totally agree with what Lynda's just said. I think it's vitally important, and I think it's been a theme right from the very start of this conversation that strategically the goals of the business have got to be aligned. So I think it's fundamentally important the key stakeholders are helping drive the outsourced relationship and the decisions that are made. I think that's so important, and if you get that right, and then you align the right sort of partner, and we've talked about alignment and cultural alignment, then hopefully some of the things that Nev and Dave have just spoken about, in terms of, which are always going to happen, by the way, of course they are, and that's the beauty of proactive partnership management, isn't it? But hopefully there's fewer of them because that alignment has taken place right at the very start.
Right. So Dave, what's your thoughts?
From the do's and don'ts, this sounds a little bit repetitive, but my advice to anyone in negotiation is look beyond the contract and the price.
Yeah, I agree.
And Nev, do you want to finish us off?
Yes, I suppose two things here. So when agreeing your KPIs, focus on the K, the key performance indicators. So you can measure as many things as you want, but pick your key ones that everybody can then sign up to. So keep it simple in that sense. Keep communicating. All hinges on the communication. And if possible, try and leave the contract in a bottom drawer, because the moment that either party starts quoting paragraph whatever of the contract, you've lost. Work together and you'll achieve great things.
Great, excellent. Well, that's been really, really, really useful, really interesting. I found it very insightful. I hope the audience have. I'm just going to pass you over to Chantel just to finish things off.
That's great, thank you. As Jonathan just said, I hope the information discussed today, there was a lot to take in, but I hope it becomes useful for you. Just quickly going through, I think we missed a question from William Carson. Where is it? Or was it answered? Jonathan, was the question with the rise of brokers like CCP / Davies, was that one answered?
I think I might have missed that one. So.
Should we quickly do that one before we go? So the question was, with the rise of brokers like CCP / Davies, what's changed over the past 5 to 10 years in the buy side from the days of procurement-led RFP tenders?
Good question, William. So I think I take, and William knows this, I take slight exception to the word broker because CCP are far more than a broker in that we clearly hold the hand of the client right through the process and help with respect to go live.
He did go on to say, big fan of the way CCP are.
Thank you, William. There we go. The feeling's mutual, but yeah, no, I think I'd like to think that, and this isn't a sales pitch for CCP, but I'd like to think that we are, we are addressing all the points that the panel have made with respect to trying to ensure that the process of procuring the right partner is very transparent, is very interactive, is very consultative. I'd like to think that, it's not all about price. We work really, really hard to ensure that, price isn't price is clearly a focus, but isn't the key focus with respect to ensuring the right partner. So I think I'm hoping the world's moved on a little bit from the from that world of the anonymous RFI RFP.
That's great. Thank you, William. I hope that answers your question. William's actually just asked for the results of the last poll. So just quickly, the question was, are you looking to outsource or review your outsourced partner? So 14% are considering outsourcing, 14% are reviewing their outsourcer, 0% happy with incumbent, 0% happy with in-house operation, and then 71% was none of the above. So I hope that answers that for you. So there's no other questions that I've got on there. So if it's okay with the panel, I'm just going to close off.
Thank you.
Yes, that's great.
Thank you.
Perfect. So that concludes today's session. I'd just like to thank everybody for taking the time to attend today. And again, I hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. A very special thank you to our panel, Lynda, Phil, Dave, Neville and Jonathan, for being on the panel today. If you do have any further questions, Jonathan's contact details will be provided within the follow-up email, which will also contain the replay link as the session today was recorded. As I mentioned previously, this is the first in a series of webinars on outsourcing. For any further dates, you can visit our website, which is www.uk-ccf.co.uk/events. And also full information on membership of UKCCF can be found there as well. So thank you again. We look forward to welcoming you in the future. Stay safe, everybody, and goodbye. Have a lovely afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Shannon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.